And welcome back to Your Mental Health Matters with Joni and Aaron and myself, Melanie. This section of our podcast is still under the overarching conversation about schools and families working together. But this is specifically about the transitions in a child's life from ECDP or EAP to school, all those kind of transitions, to junior high, to high school, and then to college and university. So we're going to be talking about those stages. And ironically, we're kind of all in those stages that we're talking about, are we not?
We have
right?
children of our own.
Yeah, sorry, not we are in the stages, that our children are in
We
the
have
stages.
children going through those stages. Yeah.
Right, so now Aaron, let's take it over to you because talking about those transitions in the early years.
Yes, and we did spend some time on a previous episode where we talked lots about, starting school and that transition, and just being able to acknowledge that that's a transition both for the child as well as the parent, right?
Yes.
That changes are occurring. And I guess for all of the different stages, kind of this idea of welcoming or embracing a little bit of uneasiness at each transition, right? And that's very typical, right? A typical when you're anticipating a change or something different is about to happen, that you're going to have a response to that, and you might have a little bit of discomfort, right? And not to say that that's bad, but we just want to help guide you through that, right?
Yeah.
So at the ECDP EAP stage, I think it's again gathering as much information as you can to be able to talk about it with your child.
Knowledge is power, and it reduces fear for the parent and the child.
Right? Yes, what's it going to look like, right? And that's where you may have been to the open houses at the various schools to kind of, and that's why we do them, right? To be able to see and envision and meet the staff, so that the unfamiliar becomes a little bit more familiar, right?
Right.
And so, you have that initial transition, and then really for a few years it's fairly stable, where in terms of school years that you don't have big changes, right? In Fort McMurray, most schools are set up where it's preschool all the way to grade 6 are all in the same building, and so it's
There's some that are 7 and 8s though. Goes from ECDP right to 7 and 8.
7 and 8, so even longer then, right?
So the transition could be look a little bit different if they're all in the same
but
school.
But they could have been at the same school then for like 9 or 10 years in theory, right?
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, but even after 6, 7, 8 years, like it becomes home, right?
Yeah.
Your school
You're
is
used
a
to
comfortable place, and so kids right now who are in grade 6 and they're looking at transitioning to next year,
junior high,
right?
Yeah,
And so
that uneasiness, and I know a lot of schools have that set up where it will have tour days of the high schools, and so that's nice for the kids to kind of have that exposure of like, what school do I want to go to, and that big choice of where, what they want to do or what they're interested in. And sometimes it's more about like their community school, and other times it's like the programs that they want to do. So having that tour of the high schools is really helpful, I think, for the kids.
That programs piece, because every school has different things they're offering, and it may be more of, you would know, like you were working in your school in Franks Braggins, it offers different things versus, say, a typical high school, a junior high and high school, right? Like there may be a music club, there may be acting, there may be plays, and some may be more focused on different things in their programs. You have to weigh those things.
Yeah, so my son is in grade 8, and he's really into robotics, so that's why he chose his school that he wanted to go to.
That's why he chose, was based off of robotics, right?
Yeah,
that's
and what a
fantastic.
cool opportunity, I guess, for kids to be making those kind of decisions, right? And so that's where we just want to encourage and say at this stage to try to start making a plan, but you got to gather the information, right? First, whether that's through the open houses that the schools are hosting, through the school's websites, going into the school, right? The old-fashioned way, and having a conversation with whomever it might be.
And meeting all the staff, and just getting a comfort of like where everything is, and having that connection of, I guess if there's a cafeteria, if there's different things that you would want an opportunity for your kids to do, that you have that conversation. And I guess too, like if there's things that are happening within the community, like what do you want to expose your child to, and have that conversation with them, like what sort of things do you want to do in high school?
Right.
It can become big questions, right? And as a family, we hope that you're making that decision as a family, and then making a plan, right, for what that looks like. when you're going to get registered and getting all the information of when school starts and what my schedule might look like and all of these things.
And the big transition of having electives and that.
There's a lot of
changes,
changes, right? That's a big piece of this. Is there's so many things they have to decide, and at that age they don't know how. They're not too sure. They don't want to make the wrong choice, right? Like that's another piece. Like what if a child is going into junior high and maybe have some areas where they feel very shy, or maybe they have some anxiety or whatnot, and they're not too sure which school to go to. And like you both said, prepare. Go visit both schools, figure it out. Maybe you get a connection with one school over the other just by visiting. You can do all these things. As parents, you can set that up for your kid. And if it needs to be like your child, the parent, and maybe the LAC or the CST doing the tour, so it's more of a small one as opposed to the full group, that's okay. It's your child's future, so you want to be able to help with that transition as much as possible. Yeah, which brings us into high school years. Right? And high school years are tough because they have so much independence, which is lovely and wonderful. But, a parent just said to us recently, it depends on how much autonomy, how much independence your child has, how much as a parent you're still doing for your child will determine how difficult it is for them in those later years, right? So if a child is having, their parents are cooking for them, which is still normal. You still have your parents cooking for you in grade 10, but maybe you're exploring by doing your own stuff and you're learning recipes because someday you're going to be on your own and you're going to have to do those things.
That's right.
For post-secondary, right? You need to know how to cook a little. So that preparation may look a little bit different for for high school, because that's a piece of it. That's a piece of what's going to happen next, and how do we get prepared
and
for
building
it.
that independence, and are they going to get a job and have that extra in their schedule, and just juggling the things that maybe adults learn to do a little later in life. It's good to have that exposure in high school.
Yeah. And slowly pulling away in a healthy, comfortable way. Allowing to give your child more moments to explore, but even to fail. Let's be honest. Children need to learn to fail. Youth, teens, they need to know how to do something, but they also need to know how to fail because they're going to learn something from it. And it's going to be able to bring them into their post-secondary years, which is the piece of this that after they have the credits, what the credits they want, what they want to do with the rest of their life. And a lot of kids don't know when they're in grade 12. They're not quite sure yet. So
and really, though, looking at it by grade 10, though, kids start to make decisions that are impacting their future, right? Like into adulthood, right? Because by grade 10, you're starting to choose the courses that you need. And that stream that you choose is going to, for university, right? They set out a vision requirements.
And that's a big piece of what the counselors do in the high schools. They guide students into what are you interested in, and guide them into what courses they need to take. So you're not on your own with that.
And again, I think it's empowering parents, though, too, right? To be involved in that process, right? And knowing that, yes, you want your child to be able to make the decision for themselves, but you also need to kind of model, how we make decisions and what we do.
It's true. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and it's scary. And I think the youth, the teens who are graduating are more excited, but as parents, we're more scared. We're afraid of letting go. And, how much are we asking about their post-secondary grades? Are we paying for it? Are they paying for it? If they're moving out of town, that piece of letting go of that, it's hard. So you may have to go visit somewhere else where the school is to kind of get a feel for all those pieces. Preparation. Connection, preparation. It seems like that's the overarching of everything we talked about.
And are they following their peers, or are they making their own decisions?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Or you as parents too, right? Again, we don't necessarily want to make all the decisions for our kids because then they're on a path that may not be suitable for them, right? And I think it's it's finding that balance of being able to guide them and help them, but not necessarily making the decisions because how you need their buy-in, right? If you have this vision for your child, if they're not buying in,
it's not going to happen.
It may,
and you're setting them up for fail,
right?
And having that connection with your child. A good book that a parent could look into is Hold On to Your Kids. It talks about how the balance of a parent relationship should continue throughout their development and not let the peers kind of overarch the parent influence.
Yes.
So,
knowing that piece. Yeah. It's so important. Yeah. Any other thoughts? I think at the end of the day, I think what happens is parents want to do the best they can. And we want to prepare our kids the best they can for each transition. Create a plan, but as your child gets older, have them influence the plan. Let them be a part of this plan with you, because they're the ones you're putting them on that trajectory for their future. And we're doing all this because why?
Our mental health
Mental
matters.
Mental health matters.